Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, "Neighbor blocked my garage and bashed my door with a crowbar after I removed his traffic cones." Disputes over parking spots are a common issue where I live. My city is a busy one, there are tons of old houses and limited parking with lots of businesses nearby that attract customers, which makes finding parking even more difficult sometimes. Lately, tensions have been high on my block with the other residents. A few weeks ago there was a fight between two women over a parking spot. The cops had to be called to break it up, and I'm pretty sure one of them even went to jail. That's the kind of drama we have over parking here. And by the way guys, please let us know in the comments what were the worst disputes over parking that you have witnessed in your own life. Feel free to share your experiences in the comments. Anyway, all of the homes on my street are small. I live in one that actually has a garage, but I use it as an office because my house does not have much space to accommodate. I have recently grown frustrated with trying to find a spot that is near my house, and sometimes I have to park a whole block over and walk home with all my groceries. My neighbor has taken to putting up traffic cones or lawn chairs on the street in front of my house in order to reserve a spot for himself. I'm pretty soft-spoken and I really want to avoid trouble with people. Not to mention, the guy is a little rude and scary, and I don't know what he would do if I ever decided to stand up to him. I guess you could say I'm a bit of a chicken. Anyway, where we live, the winters can be harsh. It was that time of the year and I spent most of last winter having to trek way too far in the snow thanks to the scarce parking situation on my street. I was also sick of several residents putting chairs, trash cans, bikes, whatever they can to hold their parking spot. Especially my neighbor. I mean, he was taking the spot that was directly in front of my garage. His wife or girlfriend also had a car and always kept trash bags and other stuff in the way so that she could have a place to park, and yet I'm not allowed to have the place right in front of my house. I made an attempt to say something late in the fall. I worked up the courage to ask him one morning while he was warming up their vehicles in front of my house if he could possibly stop leaving items in the parking spots so that I cannot use them sometimes too. I often get home before him and would usually get to park there if he didn't keep it obstructed. He basically told me to kick rocks in meaner words and laughed at me. He also made jokes about how I was a sissy and that he didn't have to do anything that a scared little man like me would ask of him. Clearly, I found this offensive and became angry. When I tried to show this, he decided that he would intimidate me by getting in my face and making threats. He was shouting and was so close that we could probably kiss. I became panicked. I'm not used to this type of confrontation and quickly went back inside to the safety of my home. After my attempt at confronting my neighbor, he started going out of his way to personally bully me. He began leaving bags of dog feces in my mailbox or on my front door. He stole more than one dinner of mine right after it had been delivered on my doorstep. I actually installed cameras so that I could try and prove that he was stealing from me and blocking parking spaces. One day, a miracle happened. He forgot to put up his cones and I parked in front of my house. This was probably the first time in almost 6 months that I had gotten to park there. I was so happy, plus I had tons of stuff to carry in, so it was like Christmas. When I went outside the next morning to leave for work, I walked out to see my car covered in trash. Like several bags of trash had been ripped open and dumped all over my car. It was cold out too, so some of the liquids had frozen to my exterior and the windshield, making it really difficult to clean off and see in order to drive. I also noticed that the car in front of mine, the girlfriend's vehicle, was parked so close to mine that they were almost touching bumpers. I couldn't even get out of the spot without having to make a 40-point turn. It was a giant mess. I was late to work, I had to have the car washed, and I barely made it out without hitting one of the vehicles behind me or in front of me. I'm sure that was his point. He was probably hoping I would accidentally bump the girlfriend's car so that he could try and sue me for damages. What an a-hole. When I got home that evening, after walking almost 2 blocks to my house, I decided to check the cameras. Thankfully, they caught my neighbor dumping trash on my car and showed him backing up the vehicle in front of mine. He actually did bump my car, but I couldn't tell with all the trash covering it. I kept that recording marked so that I could use it against him in the future if he continued to vandalize my property. While this guy's behavior was ridiculous, there are several others who do the same things as him to their neighbors. As a matter of fact, a lady a few doors down from me had been having issues with her neighbors using her trash cans and blocking several parking spaces for themselves. She is older and cannot walk well, so having a closed parking space is important for her, but they don't care. She ended up selling her car and now she just has a family member take her to places when she needs to leave. This may be an option for her, but isn't for me. Plus, her neighbors should have some more respect for her and the age that she is. But of course, no one seems to care about anyone but themselves anymore. I have lived here for almost 8 years and I cannot believe how bad it's gotten with the parking spot possessiveness and bullying. It's a shame how people act nowadays. A few more weeks have passed and it is snowing now. And I mean snowing. Almost a foot covered the ground just overnight. I started my day as usual, walked to my spot that was a mile away and went to work. On my way home, there was a winter storm, it was getting bad again and they had just plowed the streets. Parking spots were even more limited, with snow occupying so much space. But like usual, there were several traffic cones in the space in front of my house. It was snowing so badly and I was so sick of this that I stopped the car, moved the cones and parked in the spot. I did not care what consequences there were, unless he tried to kill me or something, and that would be bad. I had decided that I wasn't going to take this anymore and I was moving his cones. First come, first serve. Damn. That afternoon, the boyfriend must have come home from work and saw that his parking spot was gone. It didn't take but a few minutes before there was an intense banging on my door. There was no way someone's hand made that noise, it could only have come from someone using an object to pound on my front door. It was kind of scary. He went on for about 30 seconds to a minute, very loud and aggressive pounding on the door and screaming profanities about me being a bitch. Not only did he riddle my door with dents and holes, but he proceeded to bash my bumpers with the same metal rod. He also took trash and dumped it on my car again. He went out of his way to pour cans of soup onto the hood and windshield, knowing that it would be an impossible mess to deal with in the morning on top of the snow and ice. I could see all of this happening from my window, painfully watching as he vandalized my property again, knowing that it is safer to just stay in my house and witness this tragedy. He saw me watching him through the window and began cursing me out, throwing snow and trash at me through the glass. Thankfully, nothing broke and I was still safe inside. I did end up calling the police. I was really unsure about it at first, but decided to do it anyway. I was tired of being bullied and feeling terrorized by this jerk. The authorities came and watched my videotape. There is no denying what happened. They could see the evidence for themselves. The police walked next door and quickly arrested him. He did resist, which ended up him being thrown shirtless and face first into the snow with a large man on his back. He cursed and screamed and said that he didn't do anything, but that is just because he didn't realize I had installed cameras to catch his crappy behavior on tape. Which, by the way, I am so glad I did. That was one of the smartest things I had probably ever done. My jerk of a neighbor was released from jail not too long after, but he and his girlfriend were ordered to move away from me after I filed a restraining order. Plus, he had to pay fees for vandalizing my property multiple times, which was well deserved. He never spoke to or bothered me again, which was totally fine by me. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I think OP in this story should have stood up to the awful neighbor much earlier, but I'm glad that in the end the story sort of had a happy ending. And as you can tell, it is always worth it to stand up to a bully, and usually it is better to do that as quickly as possible as well. Anyway, if you enjoyed the stories about crazy neighbors, then I would really appreciate it if you could post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is titled, Boss Tried to Screw Me Over, Gets His Just Desserts. The title probably doesn't make much sense, but it will after reading, hopefully. Alright, background info. When I was hired for the job which I currently work as, I was hired to work on Tuesday through Saturday from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. This had been my schedule for months, never changing, as I was verbally told that this was my set schedule. I even clarified this because I had to arrange childcare. For example, one week I was accidentally left off the schedule entirely and was told to just work my normal schedule. Around Thanksgiving time, we closed down for a week. The company policy is that you have to work your last scheduled shift before the break and your first scheduled shift after in order to get your holiday pay. On the Monday following Thanksgiving, remember I'm normally off on Mondays, I got a call saying that I was scheduled to work and that because I didn't come in, I wouldn't get my holiday pay. This kind of pissed me off because I'd been told I would work Tuesday to Saturday and thus had only arranged childcare those days, so I couldn't come in that day if I wanted to. The exact phrase I was told over the phone was, "It is your responsibility to check the schedule every week because we don't have set schedules." Fast forward to this week, while checking the schedule, I noticed that my schedule is the same as normal, with the exception that I am off the schedule on Saturday. So I decide to not look a gift horse in the mouth and just take the 3-day weekend and don't mention to my boss that she left me off. So Saturday, which I normally would work, I don't go in since I'm not scheduled. I got a call from work and didn't answer, no voicemail left. Then I receive a text from my boss saying that my schedule never changes and it will be a no call/no show on my attendance record for not coming in to work. I reply that I'm not on the schedule and so I'm not required to come in, as it is my responsibility to check the schedule every week because we don't have set schedules. I received no further reply and I am looking forward to seeing how work goes on Tuesday. Edit number 1, I forgot to mention this, but I took a picture of the schedule to make sure that I can prove I was off on the schedule in case my boss tries to write me up. And in case you don't feel like looking through all the comments, I do have a new job lined up and I'm just waiting for my start date before I quit this one. Update: before work today, I had a follow-up interview yesterday for the new job I mentioned in the comments and in the edit. I was offered the position I wanted and was told I can start as soon as I want. I came into work today intending to work the shift today before leaving, as it is the last day of the pay period. When I got to work today, I clocked in and did not see any managers or anything, so I started working. After 15 minutes or so, my boss came out and asked, "OP, you really couldn't come in on Saturday?" Obviously they knew the answer and I said no. They then asked me what I was doing that I couldn't work my usual shift and I replied that it wasn't their concern what I do on a day I'm not at work. They simply nodded quietly and walked away. About an hour later, the boss came over and asked to see me for a minute. I go to their office and there is a manager, they are above me and lower than the boss, sitting in there as well. A condensed version of the discussion, boss has a write-up and gives me a spiel about the attendance policy and said I have to get written up for a no call/no show. I refused to sign the write-up as I wasn't scheduled, so I couldn't NC/NS a shift that is not scheduled for. Manager seemed a little confused. I don't think they were told that the boss didn't put me on the schedule and that's why I didn't show up, so I pulled the picture up of the schedule on my phone and showed it to the manager, who then agreed with me that it is not a NC/NS. Boss said I know what my normal schedule is as a full-time employee, and so I should have clarified that it wasn't a mistake. I said it wasn't my responsibility to double-check the schedule they put out, and reminded them that I was told my responsibility was to check the schedule every week because we don't have set schedules. Boss said something about, "for future reference," about working my normal schedule, and I said okay and asked if I could go now. I debated whether or not to stay the rest of the shift before deciding to go ahead and leave. So I wrote and signed and documented a note saying that I was quitting effective immediately, and I left it on the boss's desk and told a manager on my way to the time clock. This is the first and only time I have quit without giving 2 weeks notice. Sorry the ending was not more exciting, but I'm super excited to be starting my new job and I'm happy having been able to share my story. The revenge was satisfying to me and I am glad to be starting a better job with a better environment. Thank you all for enjoying it with me. And the next one is titled, "I sued my boss." First, some backstory. During my gap year between studies, I decided to work for Company N. Company N was run by a husband, Dave, and the wife, Karen, with their son, and basically treated their staff like a small family. All was well for about 2 months until I realized I had to ask for a day off since I wanted to attend the last Slayer concert the band would give in my country. There was about a month to go, so I sent an email asking for the day off and explaining why. This is where everything started to go downhill. I got a reply from the Karen, and her reply was weird. She stated that's not how asking for a day off works. I was confused, to say the least. Not sure what to do. I thought she wanted a formal way of asking, so I wrote a more formal email asking for the day off. She shot an email back. I really had to think it through what I was doing, which made even less sense to me, but I was hopeful since I never really got a specific no. The next workday rolls around, I arrived, lock up my bike and headed inside ready for work. I immediately started looking for Dave to ask for answers. Before I could even open my mouth, he asked me, "Do you still want to go to that concert?" I didn't expect him to ask this so quickly, so I answered yes. The only thing he said back was, "Okay, take off your vest and you can go home." I was stunned, and while the words started to sink in, I looked at my colleagues which were just preparing for opening. When it finally sank in, anger flowed in. I'm not a confrontational person, so I simply took off my vest and gave it to Dave. Without a word, I left and started biking home. When I got back home, I told my mother what happened. We started sending emails for extra info and got very Karen-like emails back. After a couple more emails, which went basically nowhere, I looked up the laws for immediate dismissal. After reading up about it, I learned that in my country, somebody can only be immediately fired when caught stealing, frauding, the person is not able to do the work, or refusal to do the work. I did neither of these. A day or two later, I met with my attorney and began the steps to sue Company N. I told my lawyer what happened in detail, and he was very confident that I was in my right and she was not. So after trading even more emails between the three of us, we went to small claims. I came prepared in a suit with my attorney in tow, and Karen showed up alone. I guess she assumed she won because she thought she was in her right. The trial began and I was as professional and objective as I could be. Karen did the same. Well, for about half of the trial. When she realized evidence was piling up against her, she resorted to calling me a spoiled brat, among other things I don't know the English translation for. I am safe to say that was the point. The judge ruled in my favor. As per usual, I had to wait a month before I got the verdict black on white in the mail, but I won. It may have taken about 6 months from the moment I was told to go home to the point those 6 months of pay were transferred to my bank account, but it was 100% worth it. In the end, I went to the concert. It was the most awesome and most profitable concert I've ever been to in my life. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.